Hey everybody, this is your host Yoshino, and you are listening to episode number 158 of ours Decoded with painter and model Erin Nicole Henry. We had this conversation at the end of January, right before quarantine hit and the COVID-19 pandemic became more of a visceral reality in the States, but I was glad to be able to meet her in person at No Wave to have this conversation. And the best way I can describe her paintings are surrealist portraiture through this lens of abstraction of the figure. She also uses her artwork to open a dialogue up about sexual abuse and sexual harassment. She also likes to champion the LGBTQ movement in her subject matter as well. We talked about the idea of consumerism existing in the fashion world and superficiality. We also had this discussion of having a healthy understanding of body image in this episode. We talked about her work as a painter in contrast with her viewpoint as a model working in the fashion industry. This is a really exciting conversation from a very young, talented artist who I enjoy her perspective. So I hope you enjoy it. Before we begin this episode, I'd like to give a shout out to our sponsors at Decoded. Decoded Art Supplies offers professional grade art supplies for all skill levels. Decoded has their own line of brushes and panels, but also stocks a small selection of other professional grade art materials to complement their products. Decoded has a variety of materials for all skill levels. Most orders ship within 24 hours after being placed. Free shipping on orders of $59 or more. Get a 5% discount by using the discount code AD5 at checkout to receive 5% off on all Decoded products. Go to decoded.com, check out their website and all the products they supply. And if you'd be inclined to do so, go to our iTunes page and leave us a review. It helps for viewers just like yourself to hear about this podcast. All right, so here it is, my conversation with Erin Nicole Henry. Hope you enjoy it. So thanks for doing this.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, appreciate it. So this is the first time we're meeting.
It is.
But we've been talking on Instagram. I guess, yeah, tell me how you got into painting.
So my whole life, I've always been interested in art. I was always the kid, like doodling all over my classwork and my homework. And so I've always been drawing. And ever since I could hold a pencil, I've been, creative and making art. And then I kind of started discovering painting in high school. I took, the art classes in high school, but I ended up quitting doing art classes in high school because in high school you're not allowed to paint nudes. It's inappropriate for school. So yeah. I grew very frustrated because that's obviously my biggest subject matter. And so I just kind of went, took it upon myself to go home and buy some paints. And I think the first time I bought some oil paints, I was like 15 or 16. And then I just immediately fell in love with it. And I've been really painting ever since. Yeah.
So when you were like a little kid, did you draw a lot?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I have like so many sketchbooks just piled up. Silly little like dinosaur drawings. I used to always go in, I checked out every single book in my elementary school of like the How to Draw a Cat 101. They start off with the circle and like do that. And I like went through all those books. So yeah, I always just loved making stuff with whatever I could around me, really. Yeah.
What do you think drew you to drawing as a kid? I mean, I know a lot of kids draw as a sort of automatic self-expression, but what do you think is something that made you want to carry it throughout your life?
Right, and continue doing it. I don't really know the answer to that question. I guess it's just that I loved it so much as an outlet, and it truly was a passion for me. And I guess it's honestly been, the only thing that I feel like I can like concentrate fully on and focus on at a time. I'm very kind of ADD and scatterbrained, and painting was the thing I could focus, and it was meditative to me. And I just like loved the process of it. And as, just every day you literally can just make something out of nothing, really. And that the idea of that was really intriguing to me. So it's just always been natural to me, I guess. I wouldn't know what to do otherwise. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that it gives you a certain sense of control, juxtaposing painting and doing your own artwork as opposed to modeling? You know, modeling, you show up to castings and you're not going to necessarily get the job.
Well, they work together really well. Thankfully, they're both, flexible jobs. I can kind of make my own hours, and I work for myself, which is, I have to stay disciplined. That's really the hardest part, I guess, for me, is just keeping everything in line, staying disciplined, knowing when to do what. With modeling, you're right. I feel very out of control with modeling. It's just kind of go here, do this, hope that you get that job. There's nothing really you can do about it otherwise. So I do enjoy the control, I guess, that I get to have over my own creative outlook with art. And it's still, I love modeling too, because I can still be creative, and it's still something I kind of get to physically express my body, and it's creating art too, and I learn about being behind the camera more when I'm in front of the camera, and it makes me a better photographer. It makes me a better painter too. Modeling, you understand the figure form a little bit more. So yeah, I mean, they work together really well. So I feel like I've just trying to keep both of them going.
When did you get into modeling?
I started off in Atlanta as a freelance model. I just kind of accidentally got into it. A friend hit me up, or some photographer hit me up to shoot. I'd never modeled before, and I just did it that one time, and then it just kind of, the next photographer hits me up, his friend, and then it just kind of turned into this thing. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm modeling now. But there's not really a strong set industry for modeling in Atlanta, so I mostly was freelancing, which worked really well for me because I got to be in control of it. And then I, at some point, was kind of just over it, was ready to just focus fully on my art. And then I met my mother agent in Atlanta, and I kind of told him, I was like, I don't know, I'm kind of done with modeling, and especially here in Atlanta. And he was like, well, just come meet me. Let me talk to you about it. And I met up with him. I was really impressed. He said he could get me placed with an agency in LA or New York or whatever. So I signed with him as my mother agent, and then the next year, I was in LA, and he sent me to Freedom, sent me to different agencies, and I ended up signing with Freedom. I think that was about 2 years ago. Yeah, so
I guess that's where I'm asking about the idea of control and being able to feel like you're in control of the situations, because I think that there's always a grounding point where there's something that is grounding you that you're in control with, but then you can also explore things outside of that as long as you have the thing that you're in control. Otherwise, you're going to just be in chaotic anxiety in a lot of scenarios.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
my perspective. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I also think that one of the luxuries I find with being bi-coastal and kind of going back and forth, and I'm always doing art anyway, but obviously in Atlanta I have my studio, so that's where I produce most of my work, and then here I can just kind of find the space to paint, and then I model here. I really try to take advantage of just the change of scenery. Even, I could spend 6 months in Atlanta just waking up, going to the studio every day, going to sleep, waking up, just doing it on repeat, and you'll get stale. Your work will get stale. I think you can't really be complacent with your inspiration, and coming here, the colors are different, the people are different. I go from living by myself in Atlanta to being thrown in a model apartment with 9 other girls from all over the country. So it's always a good experience and something I can take back to the studio and work with, rather than just staring at my white walls every day in the studio. So I think it's always always having that, I don't know, stimuli around you as well. So
yeah.
What
do you think about that, being thrown into a model apartment?
Obviously, I guess the preference is nobody wants to live with all of these girls, but at the same time, it's a bunch of girls that are doing the same thing that you're doing. We're all in the same boat. We're around the same age. So it's very comfortable. Everybody gets along really nicely, but it's definitely it's an interesting energy. I mean, I get to be around all these like awesome, beautiful models. So I do figurative portrait work. So, you know, a lot of times I get to like, you know, sneak them outside, take some photos of them. And I like to paint all the different girls here that I live with. And yeah, I mean, just meeting new people, getting new perspective. One of the last model apartments I was staying in, I was the only American. And so when you're just living around people who, you know, don't live in America, you get an interesting perspective on life and, you know, the world and everything. So yeah.
What things have you been working through with the painting right now? You know, like what are some of the feelings and emotions that are imbued within you to be able to approach like a new piece? Like what are some of your thoughts and recollections while you're staring at a canvas?
I think I feel like I'm very like retrospective with my work. I like to I'll like take a bunch of photos of somebody. I'll have this experience, and then I'll like kind of sit on it and let it ferment in my mind, I guess, for a while and figure out, I guess, what it does mean to me, but then how I want to portray it on the canvas. Because my time is with the canvas while I'm painting it. That's the fun part for me. That's what I enjoy. And then once it's done, it's the world's, and you know, I want to let it go. It's non-attachment. But I always like to keep everything ambiguous. I love when people walk up to my work or ask questions. Is that a piano in the back? I had somebody ask one time. I'm like, sure, if that's what you see, then it's a piano. Or if somebody asks me what something means, I mostly say it's nothing or whatever you bring to it. You know, I want to keep things open for the personal experience of the viewer to bring, because I think that can elicit a much stronger reaction than being too literal. And I definitely deal in realism, but I've been trying to take my figures and put them in this kind of surrealistic, ambiguous space. I never really know, like, really where exactly, like, the painting creates itself halfway through, you know? Like, yeah. I never have a clear vision when I start something, and then it always ends up something completely different. So I've lately just kind of been creating these little characters, and I like joke. I even kind of joke that they're like helping me paint it with them. Like it's this girl's world, and like what is the space around her going to be like, and yeah, what does that mean? What is this visual? What does this block of wood across the whole painting like make you think of or elicit? Yeah.
No. Yeah. I mean, that's interesting. I mean, I'm very much myself very process oriented, you know, not really having, you know, maybe some constraints, but not having like a clear end result. I think that's a good, just a lesson in life in general, to like limit your expectations on things.
Right.
To not, I mean, just being able to experience pushing paint around and just feeling it and actually being present with it, and you know, and understanding, oh, if this mixes with that, you know, on the canvas, then this does that, or, you know, just having that experience, I think is fascinating. And you don't necessarily have to have like a clear vision in the beginning.
Yeah, and especially with oils, I feel like it's almost maybe for lack of a better term, like a waste to paint that way with oils, because that's the beauty of oils, is how like flexible and malleable and different and ever changing it can be. So don't limit the medium from what it naturally wants to do, I think. Yeah.
Do you read a lot?
Yeah, I always feel like I could read more, but I enjoy reading in my spare time. Yeah.
Are there any books like recently or favorite authors?
I mostly read I try to read like some nonfiction, but I actually reread a really great fiction book by Nancy Farmer. I read it like a while ago in school. I remember really liking it, but I didn't really remember it because I was very young. And I reread it. It's called The House of the Scorpion. And it's a very, very, it's kind of a, not post-apocalyptic, but it's set in the future, in this kind of dystopian future. And it's a little boy who's kind of born into this big, what do you want to call it, kingdom, dynasty, and it's in the future. It's a class struggle. It's a very beautifully written story. Yeah, I suggest that to anybody who wants to breeze through it's kind of thick, but it's easy to read. you can, go right through it in a few days.
That reminds me of this book that I read, Book of Joan.
Book of Joan. I haven't heard of that, no.
Yeah, it's by Lydia Yuknavitch. Lydia Yuknavitch, this one, Book of Joan. But it's kind of like that. It's about this dystopic. I mean, it sounds very similar to the book that you're talking about. But I guess like a lot of science fiction is also just kind of dystopic.
Yeah, that's true.
In certain ways. But what about films? Are you into any? Have you been watching a lot of films recently?
Honestly, not too much, because unfortunately, I need to get more into films because I know there's so many great films out there. My problem is that I mostly just watch TV in the background while I'm painting, which means I normally just listen to or watch like frivolous things that I don't have to give my attention to. Like I can't like watch Game of Thrones while I'm painting. I don't know, maybe some people can. I can't, because I'll just sit there and stare at my TV or my computer. Yeah. So I don't really watch TV outside of the studio, but I do watch a lot of TV in the studio, but it's mostly just like kind of silly things, So
like what?
Oh, I mean, like my guiltiest pleasure is Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. It's and what's another good one? I just finished Atypical. I actually had to sit down and watch that one for real because it was a really good show. Yeah. But as far as movies though, I love. What I will take the time to sit down and pay attention to is a good horror movie. I love horror movies. Like which ones? What's that one that just came out? Midsommar. I thought was incredible. Yeah, Ari Aster's insane. Yeah, it was. I mean, the visuals in that were amazing, and like, it's very like a good horror movie to me is like very cathartic. So I really enjoyed that movie. Yeah, yeah, I really enjoy horror movies as well, just because they're so visceral. Yeah, I mean, you have to. The representation of the genre horror is to elicit a response in someone, right? Yeah. I mean, thrillers and horror movies, it's kind of right there in the title. And Midsummer is, whenever someone asks me what a mushroom trip is like, I show them that scene. I thought it was pretty accurate. It's extremely accurate. Yeah, compared to other like movies where they show, people doing like hallucinogens and stuff. I was like, no, that's not really what it is. But yeah, it was like very subtle too, and but just kind of subtly trippy sometimes. And I thought it was very accurate too. And yeah, I don't know how they managed to do that, but yeah, they did it. Like I love that scene when it's starting to hit the main character, and she's just standing there, and she looks down at her hand, and there's grass coming out of her hand. Yeah. I don't know if that's ever happened to me, no, in particular, but the visual portion, I thought they nailed down really well. Yeah, as they're like coming down the hill, and just like the way the things are like kind of warping and moving around them. Yeah. Yeah. So when you sit down to paint, I mean, is there like a certain ritual you go through, or is there a certain like things that you like to do beforehand to get you into the headspace to be able to create? I like to, usually when I get to the studio in the morning, I make my pour over coffee. I'll usually like start up some silly TV show to have just like as noise in the background, or I'll listen to music. And, I mean, it's a pretty short ritual. I guess I just make my coffee and then like just kind of take note of what I need to work on, what the current status is of different paintings, and just kind of figure out which one I'm feeling that day and which one I want to work on. I'm always working on a bunch of paintings at the same time because I don't have the patience to do one start to finish at a time. So yeah, I really enjoy your paintings. I think you're a very good painter. Thank you. Yeah, I think, which is why I want to bring you on the podcast. But yeah, I guess. I never like to really talk about technique or anything, or I like to be kind of ambiguous about specificities, and I think that's why I ask a lot of the times about films that you like or books that you like or things like that, because I think it's all encompassing, like those micro details permeating your cerebral cortex. They accumulate over time, Yeah, no, that's true. And also experiences like when you're a child and things like that, I think it makes its way into your paintings
or your artwork in some fashion, you know?
Yeah.
Whether
very
it's
much
hidden
so.
behind the scenes. Like, that's what's interesting, I think, about the world of fashion, actually, is that I feel like fashion is superficial, you know? Fashion
Yeah.
is about beauty. It's about, you know, what you're wearing and who you're wearing and things like that. But what is your take on that, being currently in the world of fashion?
I honestly, even after these years, I still feel like I honestly don't have much experience really like in fashion. Like I thrift, like my 100% of my wardrobe is like thrifted. So I'm not one of these people shopping on Melrose I just can't afford it. But my perception on fashion has changed a lot, I guess, in the last few years too, because you can always say that it's about this facade and this image. But it's also a great way to express yourself for sure. And I've like grown a new appreciation, I guess, for the fashion world. But yeah, I mean, I don't really know how to answer that question.
Yeah, it's
How
kind of,
does
I'm
it,
sorry,
like-
it's kind of,
No,
it's like,
it's fine.
it's like a loaded question, basically.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I honestly like don't really feel like I have much experience, like really in the fashion world and like with these big brands. I don't really know what I'm talking about.
That's fine.
Yeah, but
It's fine.
yeah, I don't really know what to say to that.
Yeah, no, I just think like, I mean, I'm just taking my observations and then trying to put them into some sort of like contextual context.
It seems like there's always like, I will say like with fashion, there's like people say no, people say no all the time when it comes to fashion. And I feel like with art, you never really can say no to art. Like art in this media could be like anything. Like,
What do you mean by say no?
like in the fashion world, there's like rules, and of course it's about breaking the rules and this and that, but it's like, even the modeling industry, it's like, oh, we want you on this Paris runway, but you need to lose 10 pounds. So that's like a no. That's, even though this person might be the best person to be wearing this garment or what, I don't really know, but it's limited, I guess. And expressionistically, I feel like the art world and the fashion world can still like combine and work together a little bit more. I would love to see more collaborations with giant fashion brands and, small time artists. And those exist out there, but these fast fashion brands, going to Forever 21, they have 52 fashion weeks instead of 4 seasons. And that's killing our environment. It's kind of killing fashion. So I don't know, I guess that's getting into a whole other conversation, but yeah.
It's interesting. Just, I mean, outside of the world of fashion, I just think that beauty is internal and beauty externally will fade, but I think internal beauty lasts beyond your corporeal body.
Yeah.
Because if you can express yourself internally, like the internal monologue, and if you're fearless about it, and hopefully you might have an audience for it, even if you don't have an audience, like a large audience, even if you have just like the people around you, like in your community, to be able to, to speak positively about just like context and body image and things like that, that I just feel like the fashion world in general portrays something that I think is getting broken down a lot now. I think in the past, like with Photoshop and heavily relying on Photoshop to like basically dysmorph people's bodies to make them look extremely
it's ridiculous,
skinny, and it has this cultural impact. And I think now that we're becoming more aware of what that impact has on the mass audience.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they're becoming more aware of what the general person is, and it's not the 5'10" skinny blonde white girl. That there are more interesting people than just those, and it's becoming a lot more diverse. I've definitely seen that in the past 2 years. I mean, part of the reason I never really thought I could get signed and didn't really pursue modeling much, even when I was freelancing, was because I have tattoos and I have piercings, and I'm even like at that time was like a little short. I'm 5'8", but was considered pretty short at the time, and now I see a lot of that changing. And a lot of people embrace those looks, and it's not so you have to look exactly like this or be this certain height. You know, it's more about what you can bring to the table. I know I definitely see that modeling agencies and even companies that are hiring models, they really value the model that they're hiring and what they can bring, like, as a person, you know, and being social, just being a person and not just a pretty face in front of a camera. So yeah.
I mean, I think that's a whole nother conversation too about consumerism and these variables that, you know, we've set up where, I mean, even the strive for perfection is, you know, kind of like marked in with consumerism. It's like, okay, so if you purchase these material goods and you put them on your face, and then, you know, you'll be able to be a little bit better, you know, when the actual idea that I think people should indulge is you're already perfect as you are, you know?
And to celebrate who you already are in your unique way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think that's catching on to some of the industry. I think there's obviously a long way to go, but
definitely,
I feel like I see that happening.
Yeah, there was actually this. I think it was a Neutrogena ad, or there was some sort of advertisement that I saw in CVS in Palm Springs, and I walked in the store and I saw this advertisement. And this lady had eczema, and I don't know. It was almost like something Matthew Barney would do.
Really?
Yeah, it was really interesting because it just seems so like the antithesis of like an advertisement, but I had an appreciation for it because it was just so. I was actually a little jealous. I wish I shot it. I was a little bit jealous.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was interesting, but I don't know. I guess it's good that. I mean, I don't guess. I know it's good that there's more conversations out there about body image and healthy body image.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I see a lot of models kind of taking a stand towards that and saying no when that somebody in Paris, you know, wants to book them but tells them they need to lose 5 pounds or a few inches off their waist, and they'll just be like, no. And I think one thing it's important for models to always realize is that agencies need us, but we don't necessarily need agencies. So always remember to do what's best for you and stick up for yourself. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, and I think that's the thing is that like young and impressionable people don't necessarily have those set in stone values that you potentially get. I say potentially get because not everyone comes to this conclusion. You know, you'll see people that are much older that don't have value for themselves, you know? And I think we can talk about, you know, parenting and things like that and, you know, being able to raise your kids to have like good values and good morals and things like that. But yeah, I think that's it. It's kind of just capitalism in general. I think it's horrible that we like commodify people as well.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah. But anyways, to digress, back to your paintings. So do you have a studio here or what's your setup?
I don't really have a proper studio space here. The apartment that I'm in right now, I literally have a big 36 by 48 raw canvas just nailed to my wall in my living room, and I've just kind of taken over the table in there with my stuff, and thankfully my roommates don't really mind it. They're entertained by it. So I guess one of the good things about this situation is that it does force me to work on one thing at a time for the most part, at least one big painting at a time. So I've been painting on the wall, and my plan is just to take back whatever I've created here, roll it up, take it back to my studio in Atlanta, and then stretch it, and then, you know, put all the final touches on it, and then have it ready.
How long have you been working on that piece?
So I actually started it last year, and I kind of got halfway through it, and then I ended up coming back to LA or going somewhere, and it's kind of sat in my studio for the past few months. And when I came this trip, I knew I wanted to have at least a bigger piece to work on, and so I just folded it up, threw it in my suitcase. I found that one because it was one of the only ones that wasn't stretched already, so I just was like, oh, I can finish this while I'm down here, and threw it in my suitcase and then nailed it up to the wall. So it's pretty much in its final touches now. I'm not comfortable like entirely finishing it until it's stretched, so I can like really get an idea of what it looks like. But yeah, it's pretty much there now. So I've been working on it for the past few weeks.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's interesting too with oil painting, is that you can literally work on the same piece for forever. That's
why I love it, because rarely can I get through, even if I plan it to be like an alla prima and do the alla prima painting for a day or two, I'll always come back to it and want to kind of mess it up a little bit. And I love revisiting old stuff and then being like, oh, that's not ugly enough or something, and sanding it down or throwing some other paint on it and just kind of making it interesting or something new. So yeah.
What do you mean by ugly enough? What do you think attracts
yeah, so I guess
you to that?
ugly, people think ugly is a bad word, but I think, I don't know, the pieces the art I find the most exciting, I guess, is pieces that I use, I guess, for the lack of a better term, ugly. That's not just so stereotypical pleasing on the eyes. There's something off about it, something maybe like a little uncomfortable about it. I think the perfect example of this is like Jenny Saville's work. Stunning. She's a master, but you wouldn't like call that pretty. You wouldn't call her paintings. I guess pretty and ugly are very elementary terms to come at art with, but I don't know. I've always, if I make a piece and it's just too what it is, it's too easy on the eyes, I'm never really happy with it.
Yeah.
And I've ruined a few pieces going back and trying to make it ugly, but that's just how it is. So, it's trying to do something that's uncomfortable, I guess, as well, too, because it's easy to just go and look at a figure and paint the figure just as it is. Yeah. But what makes it intriguing, I guess. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Have you seen some of those Jenny Saville pieces over at the Broad?
No, I haven't.
They're insane.
Okay, I need to go see those.
They're
I didn't
huge.
know.
They're huge and they're insane. They're right next to the Cecily Browns.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I need to go check that out. I didn't even know that they were here. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
I've never seen her work in person, but wow.
Literally right up the street. You can go after this, probably.
Oh my gosh, I might.
Yeah, it's interesting. Jenny Saville, her pieces are, it's always interesting trying to describe visual art.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what words really exist that are accurate.
Yeah.
I always struggle over trying to describe my art. So
no, me too. Yeah. It's interesting. It's almost like, it's kind of, when I think about good literature, and then like recently I've been listening to a lot of David Foster Wallace, and he has a compilation of his short stories and some interviews, and just the way that he's able to describe something so simple. He has a story of a middle-aged man that's an accomplished writer in his Speedo sitting on his porch in middle America, and just to be able to describe all the little nuances of like the Speedo that he's wearing and the color of it, and like the stitching and the knit. I think there's something interesting to be able to contextualize literature and to listen and read it, and to be able to infuse that into your artwork. So I always try to toggle between like watching films and looking at a beautiful painting and just kind of staring at it and seeing because really a painting is just materials on a canvas or a board.
It's literally just like an illusion.
Yeah, it's like an illusion. Yeah, but we bring our own context to it. Like if you look at a face, is it really a face? Like, I'm pointing to, we're at the No Wave, and one of Joseph Lee's paintings is up, and I'm pointing to it. But we only know that it's a face because we know what a face looks like. But really, it's just paint.
Yeah, it's just literally a bunch of globs of paint on a canvas.
Yeah, it's like globs of paint. Yeah, so yeah, and it's even interesting just to think about like the idea of figurative work. Because a figure is something that we associate something being a figure, but something that's a little off from that it can be like a dysmorphed figure or an abstract piece,
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess that's the artist's job to be able to break that down and figure out what that is for themselves.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think it's an ever-changing journey. I think you can like adapt to how people like respond to your work and like make note of it. I guess I noticed one thing that I thought was interesting when I was showing in this gallery in Georgia. I had figurative work there in this gallery, and people would come up to me, and to be fair, this is like a more conservative kind of traditional area, but the comment that I got repeatedly was, "Oh my gosh, I love this painting. It's, such a cool figure, such a cool painting, but I don't know who that is. I couldn't hang it in my house because I don't want to hang a random woman in my house." And they're trying to see this as like what it is to them, I guess, or if you love the piece, you can just hang it in your house. You don't have to, you don't have to know who that face is, but that there was that kind of disconnect with the people who were looking at that, and they felt uncomfortable for some reason having a stranger's face, which I just thought was really interesting. And I didn't even really like consciously start doing it, but then later I came to LA and I had a makeshift studio, and I just started like cutting the heads off of all my paintings and just kind of like blurring them out, or just not headless figures, but like you could not make out a distinct face in it. And I saw people's response to that like change. They paid attention to it differently instead of paying attention to just the face and like, who is this? Because it's not about who it is. Like when I paint a figure, I'm not painting it as a portrait per se to like represent this person. I'm just painting it as this figure that I just want you to look at and how they exist on this painting and in space. So it's not about your relation to the figure necessarily, unless you want that out of the painting. But yeah, that's so. I guess adapting to it's not that you can't tell me what to paint like that. That's just not going to work. That's never, I've tried to do the commissions thing. That doesn't really work out. But I definitely see how people respond and like what they like and what they don't like. And I like to push people to feel a little more uncomfortable, I guess, when they look at my pieces, because they'll stay longer and look at it. It means something different than if they just like, oh, that's a cool nude, pretty face, and just keep walking and on to the next piece. So, yeah.
What do you think about putting yourself in, or constantly putting yourself in uncomfortable scenarios to be able to learn new things?
I think it's so important. I mean, that's even half the reason, I come to LA. I get to model here too, which is a great, part-time job. But when I'm here, I don't have the luxury of my studio. It makes me a lot more resourceful, for sure. And I noticed that my art like blossoms in a different way when I come over here. I have new kind of inspirations, experiences. I mean, there's so many pastel colors here. I noticed that I paint in different colors here. And so yeah, I mean, I think it's never a bad thing to be uncomfortable. Like I said, complacency will kill you. If I sit and just wake up and go to the studio every single day at home, I'll eventually get stale. And I notice that my art gets stale and I need to change it up, do something a little, maybe perhaps uncomfortable, but in the end, it's always a good thing.
Do you think that you, by nature, are nomadic?
Lately, I have been. Yeah. I've grown up. So I grew up my whole life in Georgia, pretty much. My first 20 years in the same city. But then once I left college, and then once I got signed with this agency, Freedom, here, I've enjoyed just kind of going back and forth. Yeah, I don't really have a permanent lease anywhere, which feels really good. The only thing I'm paying rent on is my studio. Yeah, I mean, it leaves me open to go back and forth. The past few years, I've just kind of been going where the wind takes me, for sure.
Do you think that is that an exciting thing for you, or do you think that's just kind of like the natural way that you like to do things, or what?
I'm still figuring it out because there's definitely times where I wish I could just kind of be a little more settled. But then I always say that, and then once I am settled in a place, I get uncomfortable. So ideally, I guess I always want to keep on the move, yeah. But you know, having a little more stability also doesn't hurt because my life right now is very all over the place. But it's exciting and it's fun. But I'm sure that won't last forever.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's good to be able to constantly like challenge yourself and to be able, even something as simple on a daily basis, to go to different coffee shops. Yeah. You know, and then try to intake the environment and be observant of just the surroundings and people's conversations and things like that. I think can inform your work in just ways that you don't even imagine at that particular time. You know, like someone could have a really strange conversation about the loss of their father, or just like, you know, you might see someone crying in a corner by themselves, and you're wondering like what's going on with that person, and you know, that might bring you to a conclusion to be able to do a painting or something like that. So I think it's always good. You know, I think like the observational quality of the artist is the most powerful quality, or one of the most powerful qualities. But yeah, I've just been thinking about that recently. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Very true.
Like when I think of art, I think of just like I knew from a pretty young age. I say pretty young because I figured this out in college that I want to contribute my life to the arts. What do you think about that in terms of your purpose? Or what is your purpose, rather?
I just feel like my purpose literally is as simple, just to create. That's when I feel the most fulfilled. I love when I create something and somebody comes up to me and tells me how much they love the piece or how much it means to them and what they see in it. That's what fulfills me, and seeing people enjoy my art and think about it, ask me questions about it, be intrigued by it. I always am an advocate of the purpose of art is purely just to exist. I think especially once you kind of start getting into like the professional art world where you're selling and dealing with galleries and stuff, you can kind of forget that sometimes. And it's always important to remember like the pleasures of art, the simple pleasures of art, and art is for everyone and anybody. So I always feel like I want to spread that message and just keep creating. I would love to have a great life made for me where I can just wake up every day and just paint in whichever city I feel like being in. So yeah, I mean, really that's my inspiration, is just to share good things with art. And I think that's kind of the purpose of art. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much. Thanks for doing this and taking the time out of your day to be on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for having me. Yeah. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. Music for the podcast is by Rarebit, aka Justin Dosher Hopkins. Editing assistance is by Noah Wainwright, and intern is Sam King.